Vincente Fox from Mexico, Matthew McConaughey. We had President Bush. That's with Carlos Watson, which is both an investment of ours in Aussie Media, but also a partner. Richard Branson, Condoleezza Rice, Howard Schultz, who's the founder of Starbucks. GSV IQ is our research business out of India. We have a weekly publication on innovation and growth called A to Apple. That if you'd like to subscribe, it's free. And then GSVlabs, which obviously you are in the middle of. So GSVlabs is obviously based here in the heart of Silicon Valley. We also have labs GSV Labs in Boston and in partnership with Times of India in Delhi and Bangalore. Our goal over the next 5 years is to have 40 labs around the world connecting Silicon Valley to this emerging global Silicon Valley, which creating this ecosystem around startups, investors, and corporations. About 170 startups here. $600 million has been raised for these startups since 2015. And so, we love innovation, we love growth companies, but there's some realities of being an innovator and being a startup that I think is important to understand. So every day in America, there's 1,100 companies that are formed. Every day in America, 1,100 businesses fail. If you're an entrepreneur, your company has only a 20% chance of surviving its first 3 years. In 2018, venture capitalists invested in 3,000 companies. In 2018, just 93 companies, venture-backed companies went public. Entrepreneurs are 70% more likely to have a heart attack, twice as likely to be divorced, 3 times likely to go bankrupt. What kind of nut would start a company? Okay? So see if you can name this nut. Ready? Lost his job in 32, defeated in the race for state legislature in 32, failed in business in 33, he had a nervous breakdown in 41, defeated in races for Congress in 43, Senate in 55, Vice President in 56, and Senate in 58. Can you name that nut? Abraham Lincoln, 16th President of the United States, arguably our finest. So here's some other, the whole story of entrepreneurship is one of being setbacks and challenging conventional wisdom. So I'm going to go through some other nuts and see if you can identify them. So this entrepreneur was told by his teachers that he was too stupid to learn anything. He was fired from his first 2 jobs for lack of productivity. You know who this is? Thomas Edison, 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration, the founder of the electric light bulb, the founder of the movie camera, the founder of many, many other innovative products, and also the founder of General Electric, $80 billion market cap. Okay, so this entrepreneur was told by his Yale professor for his senior thesis, in order to earn better than a C, the idea must be feasible. This was his idea about a new airline. You know who this is? Yeah, Fred Smith from FedEx. And so Fred took his, and he had a small inheritance. He took some venture capital money, and he basically took his thesis paper from Yale and started Federal Express. And like most new enterprises, it took more time and more money. So he's down to his last $5,000 on a Friday. And do you know what he did? What any great entrepreneur would do, he went to Las Vegas, turned $5,000 into $27,000. Federal Express planes flew on Monday morning, and the rest is history. Literally doing whatever it takes. Today, $40 billion market cap company. So this entrepreneur was dyslexic. He was turned down by 53 banks for a business loan. He was told by his principal in high school that he was either going to be a millionaire or be in jail. You know who this is? This is Richard Branson, founder of 8 different $1 billion plus businesses. Okay, this is like the greatest business book I've ever read. So this entrepreneur was dropped by his JV partner, who then sued him. His first bank cut him off. His second bank had the FBI investigate him for fraud. 2 creditors showed up at his headquarters on the same day to collect, so he spent the whole day keeping them in different rooms so they wouldn't run into each other. U.S. Customs then slapped him with a $10 million bill when he basically had no money. And then his star brand endorser died in a car crash, and his replacement wore a competitor's product on global TV. You know who this is? Phil Knight, Just do it. $100 billion market cap. So, I mean, the point is, I wasn't sure how many different stories like that we had here, because we have literally dozens that go on. Because that's not atypical, it's typical. Something also that is classic as it relates to being an entrepreneur is embracing change, because things change, and over time they change a lot. So 200 years ago, to go from the East Coast to the West Coast would take a generation, and you lose half your travel party. Today, when you go from New York to San Francisco, it takes 6 hours, and if your Wi-Fi doesn't work, you're pissed off. 100 years ago, the innovation capital of the world was Detroit, Michigan, and Henry Ford was the Steve Jobs of his day. It's how, that's where people from around the world came to kind of stake their claim on the future, because that's where it was all happening in Detroit. 100 years ago, Silicon Valley, this is Silicon Valley. This is a picture from Silicon Valley. It was a bunch of apricot and apple fields. And the farm was an academic institution nobody had heard about that had just started 25 years before, that being Stanford. Detroit looks more like this today, although it's going through some renaissance. And obviously Silicon Valley is the home of many of the game-changing businesses that are changing the world. Probably the greatest change agent in the history of the world is Gordon Moore, who came up with this thesis of computing power. It was going to double every couple of years. Over 50 years ago, what became known as Moore's Law. What's so fascinating about Moore's Law is that it's not actual scientific or physical law. Basically, it was Gordon Moore imposing his will upon an industry which transformed not only technology, but also transformed society overall. Looking at the impact of technology in business, and moreover, looking at how things change over time, these were the 5 largest market cap companies in the world 50 years ago: IBM, AT&T, General Motors, Standard Oil, and Kodak. 2 of those 5 companies went bankrupt in the next 50 years. The 5 largest market cap companies in the world today are Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Alphabet, and Facebook, which didn't exist 50 years ago. Number 7 and 8 are Alibaba and Tencent. And what's amazing about Alibaba and Tencent, not only that they're from China, but they didn't exist 20 years ago, nor did Facebook. Take a close look at this picture. So this is St. Peter's Square at the Vatican. Got it? Okay. Here's what it looks like today. So that picture was from 2005. This is today. What's remarkable to me is in the environment where basically everybody became a photographer, right, with the phone they have. Kodak, which was founded in 1888, went bankrupt in 2011. By the way, Kodak had the patent on digital photography. That was the same year that Facebook acquired Instagram for $1 billion, and they had 11 employees. So John Chambers, who was the chairman of Cisco, said, if you don't innovate fast, disrupt your industry, disrupt yourself, you'll be left behind. Larry Page said lots of companies don't succeed over time. What do they fundamentally do wrong? They usually miss the future. And Jeff Bezos said, frankly, I'm more concerned about 2 guys in a garage when talking about competition. And not in the direct correlation, see corporate venture capital is growing at a unprecedented rate of over 33% CAGR, reaching $29 billion in 2017. So I'm going to close this talk, I'm going to talk about 3 gravitational forces that are shifting, that are creating opportunity and challenges. So I think the saying, either you disrupt or be disrupted, is absolutely fundamental. But the first gravitational shift I want to talk about is digital natives rule. So this is the class of 2020. So this is a group of students that came into school. Obviously, they came in. They came into school or existence. What am I not saying this? They were freshmen 2 years ago. They'll graduate a year from this spring. And what's so interesting about this class, they're different than any class before them. So they were born 21 years ago. There you go. Do the math really easy. So also 21 years ago. So this generation of students, thinks about things different, does things different. just the whole way they operate is completely unusual for people that came before them. And so also 21 years ago is when Google was born in a garage with these two people as the parents, Larry Page and Sergey Brin. So this class of 2020 has grown up in a world where basically all the information in the world is available to them at their fingertips for free. My generation, water was free, and information was difficult. Also, 21 years ago, Steve Jobs came back for his second tour of duty at Apple with the original goal of putting a computer on everybody's desktop, ultimately put a computer in your pocket. So for this class of 2020, the smartphone, it's not a smartphone, it's just a phone, and they do everything with it. From getting the transportation, to getting food, to buying products, to consuming entertainment. Not only are they getting everything off their phone, but they're getting it when they want it. So this on-demand mentality is absolutely fundamentally how they live. And so that's a direct consequence. The binge watching where you don't have to wait a week to see your favorite series. You can watch the show repeatedly all night long if you want. So it's not a coincidence that this class of 2020 thinks that taking an economics class remember when their friend's family's house was foreclosed because of the economic crisis of 2007, 2008. And again, we think of a natural reaction to this class of 2020 and really millennials overall don't like to own anything. So you see home ownership has fallen substantially, but it's everything. Last year, there were more cars sold to people 75 years or older than 18 to 24-year-olds. They also remember how their family lost their parents, lost the job that they had their entire career with the financial crisis. And again, the Department of Labor estimates that this class of 2020 will have 15 careers between the time they graduate from college and the time they retire, if they ever retire. And one of those jobs could be part of the gig economy as a Lyft driver or an Uber driver. Second gravitational shift is about digital disruption and automation. So this is Mark Andreessen, who founded Netscape, basically commercializing the internet in 1994. So the digital tracks that have been laid over the last 25 years now have 3.7 billion people on the internet. You've seen, as a result of Moore's Law continuing, in the last 25 years, you've seen the cost of computing going down 99%, so it's effectively free. Storage is infinite and essentially free. There's now 2.6 billion smartphones, 258 billion app downloads last year. Also in 1994 is when Amazon was born, originally buying physical text, physical books online shipped to your house. In 1994, Sears Roebuck is one of the most important retail companies in the world, had a $16 billion market value then. Today it's bankrupt. And today Amazon has a $900 billion market cap. But it wasn't just Sears. If you look at large retailers such as Target and Best Buy, Macy's, Sears, JCPenney, Kohl's, they've lost nearly 50% of their value in the last 10 years, over almost $100 billion. And department stores have shed 100,000 jobs since October 2016. The good news is that e-commerce is creating jobs too. So there's 355,000 new jobs created since 2007 by e-commerce companies. But just as fast as jobs are being created, technology is taken away. Amazon, again, the major disruptor, has over 100,000 robots working in their warehouses today. Chinese firms bought 90,000 industrial robots per year, expect to be 175,000 by next year. And so McKinsey estimates that there's 350 million global manufacturing warehouse workers. All of their jobs are in play. But it's not just blue-collar workers, it's also white-collar workers. McKinsey also estimates that there's 12 million middle school jobs eliminated by 2025 just in the United States alone. And those jobs are things like managing money. So it's estimated that $7 trillion is going to be managed by robots by 2025. Already, the Associated Press does financial analysis quarterly on 3,000 companies using robots. So if you think about what the future could look like, it's basically money is going to be managed, making decisions by robots that are getting input from other robots. Add it all up, and it's estimated that 50% of all jobs that exist today could be replaced in the next 20 years. So people like Mark Zuckerberg, smart people like Mark Zuckerberg, said he should be a coder because basically there's insatiable demand for coding jobs. And in fact, there's 1.2 million computer science job openings by 2020 estimated. Harvard Business Review said data science is the sexiest job of the 21st century. It's a sexy job because there's a huge demand imbalance for people that have that skill set and the demand by corporations that are looking for people that are data scientists. The problem with this logic is this chart. So basically, computers are on an exponential curve, and human capabilities are on a linear curve. We're here. So what this means is pretty soon, technology is going to replace the technologist, or it's not just white-collar workers, not blue-collar workers, it's also the no-collar workers whose jobs are at risk. So the killer jobs today could be killed tomorrow. And what we know is that as sure as the sun comes up in the east, automation is going to continue to eat jobs. But it doesn't eat work. And so part of this is reimagining what the future of work is going to look like and where the jobs of tomorrow are going to be and what kind of skills you need, what kind of knowledge you need. Last gravitational shift I want to talk about is the global Silicon Valley. I would also, I'd love to talk about the future of work and knowledge workers, but I think you'd get tired of me talking as much. But we do see that as a huge gravitational shift too. So the last gravitational shift I want to talk about is the global Silicon Valley. So if you look at the old innovation map, it looked like this. In places like London, sort of the attitude about innovation and entrepreneurship was, risk isn't my cup of tea. If the Queen doesn't like it, why should I? There wasn't a lot of entrepreneurship and innovation historically in London. You get to New York, not a lot different or better. The attitude in New York is, if it's such a good idea, why hasn't it been done already? You move west, get to Minneapolis, where I grew up, a little bit more innovative mindset. The attitude was, looks promising, let's test it, and then let's test it some more, and let's test it some more from there. And then you move out west to San Francisco, and the attitude about a new idea is, can I write you a check? And then you move all the way to China, where the attitude in Shanghai is, great idea, now it's my idea. But what's super exciting is you're seeing innovation basically explode around the world in these new markets that basically are embracing innovation. Technology is enabling that to some degree, but so is the new landscape and the future of work. What a lot of people coming out of college said the best job that they can have is the one they create for themselves. I wrote a book a couple years ago called The Global Silicon Valley Handbook. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it maps out the 50 top innovation markets around the world, looking at a variety of statistics, everything from angel investments to what the university system was in a marketplace, quality of life, and so forth. And with that book, I don't know how many people watch the HBO show Silicon Valley. Does anybody watch Silicon Valley? Okay, so this is the proprietor of the incubator on Silicon Valley, Alec Bachman, also T.J. Miller. And he got a copy of the book, and here's what he said about it. He said, one of the most ridiculous but informative books I've ever read. So I'll take that as an endorsement. Anyway, so what we see, though, in wrapping up, is this mindset is spreading around the world, from Austin to Boston, from Chicago to Sao Paulo, from Mumbai to Shanghai to Dubai. And that's what we call the global Silicon Valley. And that's what we're very excited to be part of with this innovation ecosystem. So as we talk about how this all changes, the late, great Muhammad Ali said, impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. And I think that's the bottom line in terms of the mindset that has to happen about how we accomplish some of these important but seemingly stretch goals. Thank you.
Well, perfect. Everybody can jump?
Yeah, sure, sorry. Sure. I was just trying to leave stage as fast before people start throwing stuff at me.
And maybe I'll just throw one out there first, but would love to hear from the audience. As you look at kind of some of the technology verticals or market verticals and business model innovations that are happening, and you look kind of 5 years down the line, what are some of the opportunities that are getting you most excited?
Well, I mean, first of all, when you look at AI, what we see with AI is not specific companies. We see it embedded basically in almost every company of every industry. So just as a fundamental megatrend, AI is, it's been an interesting place for a long time, but it was sort of science fiction-y. And now it's becoming extraordinarily real, and I think it's transformative. Blockchain, again, I think is a transformative platform that's coming, and everybody focused on the cryptocurrency and the boom and bust and everything else. But often when you see that type of activity, it's an indicator that something important is going on. And certainly I believe, that blockchain is going to be a transformative shift that takes place not only in the financial services industry, but in almost everything you can think of, from real estate to education to healthcare. That's another incredibly important area. We look at education as a fundamental booming need. When you look at this reality of jobs that are being replaced and the fact that this inequality that's been created, not just in Silicon Valley, not just the United States, but really around the world, and somewhat catalyzed by technology, where you're seeing basically it's almost a winner-take-all. So you're seeing the shift, and so the only way to change that dynamic is either through a kind of a political shift, which I think is harder to see, or you figure out ways to have more people to participate in the future, and that's really education. So I think education is certainly an important place, and I think probably the last area that I'd mention is technology and wellness and health, which I think is going to, again, you're seeing little bits and pieces of it that get pretty exciting today, but I think when you look 5 years from now, I think it could make a major difference in terms of quality of life and how you see people healthier and happier.
Any questions from the group?
I was wondering about geographical expansion and how you think about that in terms of the technologies that you mentioned that, but in terms of the companies that would be more open to this kind of model, because abroad it's not. Silicon Valley has a different mentality, and it's hard to translate that into other cultures sometimes.
It is. So we're looking to do one. In order to expand with GSVlabs, every place around the world basically has this hunger for innovation and entrepreneurship. I mean, it's a global phenomena. So we think the markets for labs are very open-ended. To your point, how do we select or how to determine what's right for us, where we can add value? I mean, there's a number of things, but one is we're looking for partners. I've been to China, I guess 15 times in the last 2.5 years, and the one thing I know about China is the more I go, the less I know, right? But it's the most exciting place on earth in terms of the change and the ambition and hunger for things. But we'd get our head handed to us trying to go to China alone. So we're looking for partners that have aligned interests. Universities are an important place if you're trying to find the talent. Universities are going to be a great place to be hunting, and so we're looking to how align with key universities and key sectors that we care about. So I think I'm probably. So for example, if we're interested in AI, and AI, as I said, it's an important area of the future. We want to see where AI, where's there an ecosystem around AI that we can, connect into and be a facilitator like we are here in Silicon Valley with labs. And so, kind of mapping out the world in terms of both partners and where there's some real expertise, That's a big driver of how we're looking at it.
So, Michael, thank you for having us here. It's amazing presentation. Thank you for GSV. I have two questions. Number one is, could you share with us, like, every company, they have a tipping point where they make or they break. Sometimes they have more than one, but if you could share with us, like, when was the GSV tipping point, number one. Second question about, we talk about how to disrupt yourself before somebody does. Like, I used to work with John Chambers in the past. But let's talk about the VC world. VC world is also in a disruption right now, right? When you talk about early stage, and I would like to get your view on that. Early stage, Y Combinator, all these companies, they change the landscape for seed and A round. And now for late rounds, we have big companies, SoftBank and many others, like investing big time worldwide and also here. How do you see this VC world 5 years out, maybe 10 years out? Do you see like changing completely?
So a bunch of good questions. First, on the tipping point. First, I don't think we've had our tipping point. We've gone through a number of different challenges at GSV as we've grown the business over the past 8 years. I'm very proud of the platform we're building, but you know we've got many things to do and we've got a lot of ambition. But my experience with companies is it's not that they face one big tipping point or hurdle. It's that there's like three. There's like three near-death experiences where you can't believe the company survived, but they do. Somehow they pull their way out of it, and then they go and thrive, right? And so that just kind of goes with the territory. And I think of the ways that we're building this, and it all starts with people. I'm very proud of the team that we have here. Give me the future of VC.
The VC landscape
Yeah.
changing in disruptive way.
So one of the most ironic things about the venture capital industry is how little innovation goes on. I mean, most of these models are exactly the same. They basically are smart people with good education that hang out a shingle and say, give us your money, and then they go invest it. Where you don't see a lot of new models really trying to disrupt things. I'll say, Andreessen Horowitz, for example, I admire greatly in terms of I think they've brought some new twist to the venture capital model, and therefore, people hate them, but they're very good people and they're doing a lot of good things, and I think they are innovative. I think Y Combinator is an innovative model that's doing interesting things, and we hope we're doing interesting, innovative things, here with GSV and with GSVlabs and with conferences and the different things that we're trying to do. So I think, frankly, the VC industry isn't any different than other industries, which is, if you don't innovate, if you don't get better, you get worse. And so I think you're going to see a number of innovative models that stand out 5 years from now, and I think there will be firms that maybe don't keep up with it.
As a follow-up kind of question, so given the points you made on AI and education and probably metropolitan areas, where is, you said in those 40 locations you're going to expand to, where are you going next?
Yeah, I don't think I can. We actually do have signed deals in certain places, but I don't think they're announced yet. So I shouldn't disclose before they're disclosed, before they're disclosable. But I think we've mapped out effectively the United States and the world, in terms of what we think are the most important areas. We're rapidly trying to build more knowledge and better relationships. But certainly China is a place that we have a huge interest in. India, we have a huge interest in. We have a partnership with Times of India. In the United States, I think you're looking at areas where there's a lot of great academic institutions and looking for partners that we could be brought into markets to be successful. That's our focus. As I said, we've got a couple near-term things that I think if they haven't been announced yet, I don't think they have. They'll be announced shortly, but they're along the lines of what I said in terms of industries and academics and partners. Sorry, I can't disclose more. I just think I'd get in trouble.
You talk about technology's ability to bring education to more people and other positive effects, but at the same time, AI having this ability to eliminate a lot of jobs. So I'm curious, if you net out the positive and the negative, where do you come down on sort of the near-term future of these technologies? Pessimistic, optimistic?
Yeah.
Is it not written yet?
Well, it's definitely a double-edged sword, and I think, again, if you choose to embrace it, I think it can be really positive. I mean, AI is going to have profound impact in a positive way on helping people learn more on an individualized basis, on a real-time basis. And you're seeing a lot of interesting things done that can really help society. But there's no question, AI is going to be taking away a lot of jobs. And by the way, it's jobs that people can't even believe that they'll be taken away. So my net is, one, it's like gravity, so you can fight it, or you just say, okay, well, there's gravity, so what do you do about it? And so I'm actually positive because, it could be totally, if we just sit back and sort of let it happen, it could be very bad. But if we embrace it, I think it can be very, very exciting for society going forward. So I'm an optimist. But by the way, it's like if you're if you're jumping out of an airplane and you've never you got to be an optimist that the parachute's going to open, right? Because you just gotta jump. Sorry, go ahead.
So you showed some of these numbers on how many startups fail. And,
Yeah.
who have to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering whether you see a trend that with all the data and all the knowledge and basically everything being digital, is there a trend towards having an increasingly higher probability of success to predict the outcome?
That's a great question. So there's a couple things. One, the failure rate is actually going up in venture capital, actually, which is really interesting. Second, and so I can say this because so Harvard Business School is actually doing some really interesting things with AI, trying to basically compare how AI could select a company versus how people do. And so far, and I probably can't disclose more than what I just said, and the conclusion, which is so far what is showing is the AI is about 3 times better at kind of picking success. And again, I think we think Passport, the GSVlabs Passport platform is going to be a tool that should be a resource and provide both products and services and knowledge that should help companies reduce the probability of failure. So, I think it could be very interesting and positive, but the story's still being written.